In the heart of Lagos, where the hustle and bustle of city life never seemed to end, there lived a young lady named Sandra. She was a devout Christian who always put God first in everything she did. Every Sunday, she would dress up in her best attire and head to church, where she would sing and dance with joy, feeling the presence of God in her life. Sandra's beauty and grace caught the attention of a former drug dealer, Henry, who had turned a new leaf and was trying to redeem his life. He was drawn to her kindness and compassion, and soon found himself falling deeply in love with her. Despite their different pasts, they found solace in each other's company, and their love blossomed. Meanwhile, Esther, Sandra's best friend, had noticed the change in her and was curious about the man behind the transformation. "Sandra, who is this guy you're always talking about?" she asked one day, as they sat in the church courtyard. Sandra's face lit up with a radiant smile as she began to tell Esther about Henry's transformation. "He's changed so much, Esther. He's kind, caring, and loves God with all his heart. I've never felt this way about anyone before," she gushed. Esther listened intently, her eyes sparkling with excitement for her friend's newfound love. But little did they know, Henry's past was still lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. One fateful day, as Sandra was walking home from church, a car swerved recklessly around the corner, hitting her and sending her tumbling to the ground. Henry was devastated when he received the news, and his world came crashing down around him. Henry rushed to the hospital, his heart racing with fear. He found Sandra lying in a bed, her body battered and bruised. The doctor's words struck him like a thunderbolt: "She's in critical condition, and we are not sure if she'll make it." Henry felt his world crumbling around him. He had promised to protect her, to love her, and now she was slipping away from him. In desperation, Henry turned to the only place he knew to find solace, the church. He fell to his knees, begging God to spare Sandra's life. "God, please don't take her away from me. I promise to serve you for the rest of my life, to be your vessel, if only you save her." The tears flowed freely as he poured out his heart to God. As Henry prayed, a sense of peace washed over him, and he felt a gentle whisper in his heart: "I will save her, but you must keep your promise." Henry didn't hesitate. He vowed to dedicate his life to serving God and helping others. He spent every waking moment in the hospital, praying and reading scriptures to Sandra, willing her to come back to him. Days turned into weeks, and Sandra's condition slowly began to improve. The doctor's words were music to Henry's ears: "She's going to make it, but she needs to stay in the hospital for a while longer." Henry's heart overflowed with gratitude, and he knew that he had been given a second chance to make things right, not just with Sandra, but with God and himself. Meanwhile, Esther, who had been keeping vigil with Henry, couldn't help but notice the change in him. "Henry, what's happened to you?" she asked, curiosity getting the better of her. "You're different, there's a peace and joy around you that wasn't there before." Henry smiled, his eyes shining with tears. "I found God, Esther, and I'm never letting go." Esther's eyes widened in amazement as Henry shared his story of redemption and grace. She had never seen anyone transform so radically, and she couldn't help but be drawn to the joy and peace that radiated from him. "Henry, this is incredible," she exclaimed. "I want what you have. I want to experience God's love and grace for myself." Henry's face lit up with a warm smile as he took Esther's hand in his. "It's not me, Esther, it's God. He's the one who's changed me, and he can do the same for you." And with that, Henry led Esther in a prayer of surrender and faith, welcoming her into the family of God. As they prayed, Sandra's eyes flickered open, and she gazed at the two of them, a soft smile spreading across her face. "Henry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Henry's heart skipped a beat as he rushed to her side, holding her hand and gazing into her eyes. "Sandra, you're awake." "Oh, thank God." Sandra's eyes locked onto Henry's, and she smiled weakly. I knew you'd be here," she whispered. Henry's heart swelled with emotion as he gazed at the woman he loved. "I'll always be here for you, Sandra." "I promise," he replied, his voice choked with tears. Esther smiled, feeling a sense of joy and wonder at the love between her friends. As Sandra's strength returned, Henry and Esther helped her settle back into her routine, but things were different now. Henry's transformation had brought a new dynamic to their relationship, and Sandra found herself drawn to his newfound faith and passion for God. Together, the three of them formed an unbreakable bond, supporting and encouraging each other in their walk with God. Meanwhile, Henry's past began to catch up with him, as old associates and enemies emerged from the shadows, threatening to destroy the new life he had built. But Henry stood firm, knowing that God was his rock and his salvation. Little did he know, however, that the greatest challenge was yet to come. A mysterious figure from Henry's past appeared at the hospital, his eyes blazing with a fierce intensity. "Henry, you think you can escape me that easily?" he sneered. Henry's heart raced as he stood his ground, refusing to back down. "I'm not the same person I used to be," he declared. "I found God, and He's changed me." The figure snorted in disgust. "God? Huh? You need more than prayers to protect you from me." And with that, he lunged at Henry, but Esther and Sandra intervened, standing firm against the threat. "You'll have to go through us first," Esther declared, her voice steady and strong. The figure sneered, but Henry could see the faintest glimmer of fear in his eyes. He knew that he had to take a stand, to show that his faith was stronger than any threat. "I'm not afraid of you," Henry said, his voice calm and steady. "God is my protector, and He will defend me." And with that, the figure vanished, leaving Henry and his friends shaken but unbroken. But the encounter left Henry shaken, and he knew he had to take action to protect himself and those he loved. He began to seek out guidance from his pastor, digging deeper into his faith and seeking God's protection and guidance. Sandra and Esther stood by him, supporting him every step of the way, and together they formed a prayer circle to lift each other up and seek God's blessing. As they prayed, a sense of peace and calm settled over them, and they knew that God was with them. But Henry's past was not so easily silenced, and soon he received a chilling message from an unknown number. "You can't hide from me forever, Henry. I'll get you, and those you love." Henry's heart raced as he showed the message to Sandra and Esther. "We need to take this to the police," Esther urged, but Henry knew that his past was too complicated, too tangled in a web of crime and deceit. He needed a miracle, and he needed it fast. And so he turned to the only place he knew to find one, the altar of God. "God, please protect us," he prayed, his voice shaking with fear. "Deliver us from evil, and keep us safe in your loving arms." And as he prayed, a strange sense of peace settled over him, a sense of knowing that God was working everything out for his good. Just as Henry finished his prayer, the doorbell rang. It was Pastor James, come to visit and offer his support. "Henry, my son, I sense that you're in trouble," he said, his eyes filled with concern. Henry broke down and shared everything, the threats, the past, the fear that gripped his heart. Pastor James listened attentively, his face a picture of compassion. "Henry, you are not alone," Pastor James declared. "God is with you, and He will see you through this. But you must trust in Him, and you must be willing to let go of your past." Henry nodded, knowing that the pastor was right. He couldn't keep living in fear, trapped by the chains of his former life. He needed to break free, to surrender everything to God. And so, with Pastor James by his side, Henry began the journey of healing and restoration. He shared his testimony with the church, confessing his sins and seeking forgiveness. He began to attend counseling sessions, working through the trauma and pain of his past. And he prayed, oh how he prayed, seeking God's guidance and protection every step of the way. And God answered in a mighty way. The rival pastor's schemes were exposed, and his own ministry was discredited. Henry's ministry, on the other hand, continued to flourish, with people flocking from all over to hear his testimony and experience the power of God's redemption. Sandra and Esther stood by him, a rock of support and encouragement, as they watched God's plan unfold. But Henry never forgot the lessons he learned in the dark days. He remained humble, always giving God the glory, and using his platform to help others. He started a rehabilitation center for former drug addicts and criminals, providing them with a safe haven and a chance to start anew. And as he looked out at the sea of faces, he knew that he had truly found his purpose, to be a vessel for God's love and grace. Years later, Henry's ministry had become a global phenomenon, with branches in every corner of the world. But Henry remained the same humble, compassionate, and dedicated servant of God. And as he looked back on the journey that had brought him to this place, he knew that it was all by God's grace. He had been broken, but God had mended him. He had been lost, but God had found him. And he had been given a second chance to live a life that was truly worth living. And so, Henry and Sandra's love story came full circle. They stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the breathtaking view of God's creation. They had weathered the storms, and their love had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever. Henry turned to Sandra, his eyes shining with tears, and said, "From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You are my everything, my reason for living. Will you marry me?" Sandra's heart overflowed with joy, and she nodded eagerly as Henry slipped the ring onto her finger. They embraced, their hearts overflowing with gratitude to God for bringing them together. And as they exchanged their vows in a beautiful outdoor ceremony, surrounded by friends and family, they knew that their love would last a lifetime. Henry and Sandra lived happily ever after, their love growing stronger with each passing day. They continued to serve God together, using their platform to spread love, hope, and redemption to all those around them. And they never forgot the journey that had brought them to this place, always grateful for the second chance at love and life that God had given them.